Hi, this is Abe listening. That ain't even just like a TI is. If you like my video, please give a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Topic I'm going to talk to you today about is the interview that Drew Sidora did with Carlos King on his podcast, Reality with the King. I know a lot of other people have been talking about it, but I want to get my own point of view of it. I'm gonna talk about the parts that I liked of the interview and the parts that I didn't like. And I'm glad she addressed some concerns and some things that were going on. She even talked about Real Housewives of Atlanta, what was going on with there. She also said who would be her dream cast and certain things like that. So I'm gonna it started off with the introduction where Carlos she was singing I Did It to Me, and then he walked in the studio, and then as he walked in the studio, she said, "Oh, you're here, you're here." Somebody told me he was here, and you gave her a hug, and then they all sit down and they talk, and he said, "Drew, I want to interview you at least 2 years ago, but you didn't want to do it." She said, "Carlos, 2 years ago, I couldn't even pronounce a sentence right because this stuff was going on in real time, and then plus it was also on the show." And she was saying that's why I couldn't do it. But she said now, I think I'm able to do it. I've been having a life coach, the doctor who was on the show, who was our therapist, he was our therapist. I think it was, I don't know, was it Dr. King and Dr. I can't remember the guy's name, but she was saying that he became a life coach and he's been helping her go through stuff. And he was saying, yeah, he was saying, yeah, Drew, this probably is the best time. He said, but I just wanted to get to talk to you to to talk about things and stuff. And he said, why in the studio? Why in the studio? She said, because the studio is the most safest place for me right now. The studio is the most safest place for me, and the way I can get my thoughts and stuff around and stuff like that. And so I wrote some notes down. I wrote some notes down, and let me pause this right quick to get my little notes. Okay. The next point, he said I was Drew. He said, Drew, you look beautiful. You look lovely. And he said, and from what I can see, just sitting right here talking to you just these 3 little minutes, you do seem a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more confident. And I'm happy for you. That's good for you and stuff like that. And he said, in the words of Jocelyn Hernandez, let's get into it. Let's get into it. And she said, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. She said, but do you know, I actually opened up for Jocelyn one time. He said, oh, you opened up for Jocelyn Hernandez one time? She said, yeah, I sure did. I sure did. And then he said, okay. But like I said, we're going to get into it. He said, Drew, why did you want to come on the Real Housewives of Atlanta and stuff? You knew how it was that we started showing. She said, well, I want to come on Real Housewives of Atlanta to show because everybody has seen me, be an actress, be a singer, but I wanted to portray some of my real life. And then after I talked to Ralph about it, Ralph said it was a good idea. And me and Ralph came up, and we could come on there and show our reality and show black love and show how a black family feel. Yeah, and he said, but it didn't come out like that. She said, no, it didn't come out like that. She said, I didn't know that we were going to be going through this divorce and breaking up and all this stuff because the way I envisioned and pictured me being on Housewives, we were going to be a couple that showed black love. And he said, okay. He said, Drew, he said, you've been going through a lot with this divorce and stuff like that. He said, let's talk a little bit about that. And okay, and then he said, let's talk a little bit about that. And then they went on to the next, they went on to the next, They went on to the next point, and the next point was okay, that was the next point. And then the next point after that was where was Carlos mentioned that the first time he met Drew was on what was at one of Sheree's events. You said you remember when Sheree had that She by Sheree fashion show and stuff? He said that's the first time I met you, Drew. And the first thing you told me when you met me was why I didn't like you. And I said, oh no, Drew, it's not that I didn't like you. He said I was just going by from what I see, on the show. He said it's only a 40-minute show. He said, but I was looking at it from a fan and the way you was acting on the show and stuff. Yeah, that's why I thought you were really acting like some of the audience. And she said, yeah, that's why I was so shocked and taken aback because everybody thought I was acting, but I was actually the one that was really, really showing my true life on Real Housewives of Atlanta and the stuff that I was going through. And that's why I was shocked that you had said that, Carlos, about me. And he was saying, yeah. He was saying, yeah, and I did think. He said, but now that I see what you're going through and you've been going through this for the last 2 years, I actually believe that everything you're going through is true, especially with this divorce. And I was saying, Carlos, you just lied in front of Drew's face. You really didn't like too much of Drew. You didn't know too much about Drew. And you were just saying all this negative stuff about Drew and stuff like that. Now I hate to see people try to backtrack for what they really felt and stuff like that. And so he said, well, after I got to know you, after I was doing it, I'm saying, Carlos, you just sitting up there lying in this girl's face, and she kind of knew it too, but she kind of went on and went to the next topic. And let me pause this and get some water right quick. Now that all the formalities out of the way, now I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes. Carlos asked Drew how she feel about Porsha and Shamea filming that scene with Rap. He asked her, did she know about it? She said she had heard some stuff about it, running about, but she said the way it was presented to her, it was like Porsha and Shamea had met Ralph by happen chance, by running into him running into him at some restaurant. That's how they met Ralph. And he said, well, what do you saw? You saw a scene. She said, after I saw it, she said, after I saw the episode, I realized that everything was planned. Everything was planned, and that Shamia and that Shamia and Portia planned that and stuff like that. And to me, that was kind of hurtful. And she said the reason why it was hurtful because Ralph was saying all these disrespectful and I use the word disparaging, disrespectful and disparaging things about me to people in the group, and I didn't like that trying to make me look bad. And then and then Carlos said, "Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's what I thought too." And Drew, uh, going back I think it was episode 10. I said, going back to the episode, I think it was episode 9 or 10. He said, he went back. He said, after I saw it, and I saw how Ralph was so gleeful and cheer, when the judge agreed, when the judge agreed and ruled in his favor, and then you raised out the car and you was calling the words. He said, at that moment, Drew, I had said it in a couple of episodes before, but in that moment and at that time, I said, this man don't like Drew. This man is trying to destroy Drew. He said, Drew, what do you think about it? And Drew started crying and he was saying, give us some tissue, give us some tissue. Everybody was looking for tissue. He said, there should be some tissue in the bathroom. That's what Carlos was saying. And they finally got Drew some tissue and she started crying. And that was so sad to me, so painful. And she said, yeah. And she said, yeah, Carlos, I was thinking like that recently. I was thinking like that recently. I had to question that recently. And I was saying to myself, did this man ever really love me? This man ever really love me? And sometimes, she said, sometimes you get thinking about that and thinking about that. And Carlos said, don't worry about it. You're gonna be good, Drew, financially and personally. You're gonna be good and stuff like that. And stuff like that. He said, yeah, that's what it may seem like to me. He said, what it seemed like to me too. He said, Drew, do you think that from Ralph said y'all met 2 months, y'all was married at 6 months, and you had a baby at 8 months, you were pregnant at 8 months. He said that was very, very, very quick. Y'all didn't get a chance to know each other real quick. He said, do you think that Ralph was gaslighting you from the jump? She said, I didn't want to believe it at first, Carlos, but now that I think back on things, I think he did yes, he did gaslight you in the beginning, Drew, because like you said, you had been working ever since you was a child and stuff. And by the time you met Ralph, like you said, in 2014 or 13, you was probably maybe 19 or 20 years old. You was considered a young adult, but you was still young. And Ralph was much older than you. Ralph has always been gaslighting you, and all he wanted was your money because he realized that you was a successful actress and a businesswoman. And I don't care what nobody said. And then after that, and then after that, Carlos gave her a hug and told her she was gonna be all right and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, he asked her about he asked her about the he asked her about the court filing and stuff like that. And she was saying, yes, she didn't want the records unsealed and stuff, but he wanted the records unsealed. And everybody thought that, oh, if the records get unsealed, Drew they're gonna show about Drew did something with just rap too. It was like a lot of YouTubers and big name YouTubers wanted something bad to come out about Drew. And the only thing they could really find was Drew lawyer made us sign a separate LLC and also did that. And the only thing they say she did was hide money and transfer money. I say, well, like she said, Ralph ain't still showing his financial. So what he doing? He probably got money in Swiss bank accounts too. Everybody want to put everything on Drew. I'll look at it. Both of them did a little bit something. But anyway, after that, he talked to her about the situation with Ty and stuff like that, and well, she was saying, well, she was going through emotional stuff like that. And when she met Ty at a basketball game, and her and Ty became friends. And she was saying she didn't want to do nothing to hurt herself or to hurt Ty. And because back then Ty was still playing basketball. And she was saying her and Ty was started off as friends, and they were friends, and they would talk and text each other about stuff. And she said she's not gonna lie, she did some flirtation with Ty, but she said when the flirtation went a little bit too far, she kind of said, "Oh, this is not for me. This is not for me," and stuff like that. Now I do agree with that mean lean woman. Drew, you was wrong for having any kind of relation, any kind of emotional or flirtation or any kind of relationship with that Thai girl. You already knew that Thai girl was a gay girl. So what it is, you really didn't want to be in that type of relationship. You shouldn't try to don't let nobody, no man, and nobody force you into something that you not really want to do. And then and then she said that's why she didn't want to do that because she didn't want to hurt Ty. She didn't want to hurt her own stuff because she was already going through stuff with what you call. And he was saying, oh, okay, I understand that. He said, now I understand because me, that he was talking his own relationship. On me as a man like that, I would understand that you not be wanting to hurt somebody being emotionally attached to you, and you still over here with rap and doing stuff. She said, yeah, and then after that, they talked about the situation with Shamea, and she was saying, yeah, Shamea did tell them that stuff, but when she got in front of Porsche face, she tried to make like Angela twisted around, everybody twisted around. She said even though they were drinking at the time, all three of them, she said Shamea did say that stuff. She did say that Porsche was not a good friend, and Porsche didn't come to her wedding. Porsche, she said she just would, Shamea was staying in her stuff. And she said that's why she called Shamea a lapdog because it's like when she ain't with Porsche, she talking about Porsche, telling Porsche everything. And Drew said She should stand in it. And if she gonna tell them, she need to tell Portia what she telling them. That's all they was doing. She said her and Angela was just trying to encourage her. And I totally agree with that. Shamea's been in the background with Portia for so long, and she has been letting Portia do stuff to her for so long that when she speak up, Portia don't like it. And you can tell from what Drew do to Portia, what Shamea's talking about. Portia do not like to be challenged. Portia just want people to believe every little lie and every little detail she tell and not have no pushback. Life don't work like that, Portia. And like Drew said, they should have known that was going to be discussed on the show because they're on a reality show, and Drew is sure right about that. And on the last note, Drew was telling Ralph that her Ralph's birthday is the same birthday as her dad, and both of them they talking about the sign, and both of them Capricorn. He said, "Well, Drew, if you ready to date, I know some Capricorn men." She said, "No, no, I'm not ready to date." She said, "Are you dating?" She said, "I've dated a couple of people back and forth." She said, "But right now, until I finish the stuff with Ralph." Uh, uh, I really don't want to be dating nobody right now, dating nobody now. And then she brought up how back in the day she dated basketball players and football players, and she dated a rapper. And she said the rapper name used to be called Bird, but now it's called Skiller Boy. She said, "Oh yeah, Skiller Boy, yeah, yeah." And she said, "Yeah, I wasn't saying nothing bad about Dennis. I was just saying Dennis is not the type of man for me. He don't have the physique he got." And everybody time she was throwing shade at Dennis, she was saying, "Nah." She was just saying that she have a certain type of physique that she like. But she mentioned about it, and they said, "Well, now I'm gonna backtrack that." Yeah, even though it got, I said, a lot of men have a little poo-pah belly or a little belly. There's some women have some poo-pah bellies after they have kids. So like she was saying, she just trying to say her preference and stuff like that. All in all, I enjoyed this video. I'm glad Jude came out with her part of the story and stuff like that. This was a good interview. That's all I have for this video. This is A Wesley. That ain't even Tilted Like a T.I. is. I am out.